I know.
I've never seen anything that said it was 100 square foot and 100 square foot or 505, and I'm making these numbers up.
Well, all I can assume is from what I know about current New York living situations, it can't have been bigger than most New York apartments these days. And,
would you say an easy average number is 500 square foot
500-600
per
square foot.
business and apartment, so we had 800 square foot.
But this is 100% speculation.
Okay,
it is.
That's the problem. A lot of the story becomes that.
Yeah, and I think he was doing some of the work in his apartment too.
Well,
you would need the room probably.
If it was open, which is also a question for me, were they bisected so that the business portion was separated from the living portion, or was it one open space
I believe
and there was no
Yeah.
division?
I believe they were separated like by a door or something like that.
I got the impression of motel rooms that connect with a door.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, it's there's not enough information out there for a story that's been written about as much as this one has. Specifics like that are impossible to come by.
Yeah.
I did some special looking just to see if anybody had ever written a book about this or anything like that. I couldn't find anything, and there were some New York Times articles about it. I tried to find some of those. They're not available on the interwebs, unfortunately. So, there's just no... I'd love to see some drawings and more pictures and stuff like that. But
any kind of measurements of any kind would be really helpful.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah,
So can you explain... I mean, now getting away from that bit of tangent, which is my fault, but because I brought it up before we started recording, but what were the kind of precautions that...
Or maybe
you
not
put him at
crazy, or
the
maybe
kind of
were.
semi-paranoid level.
Yeah. I don't know if this was, ultra paranoid even, but he apparently had extra bolts on his doors and his windows were nailed shut.
What?
And I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask, nailed shut, you have a couple nails in to hold the door or to hold the window panes closed, or you've nailed pieces of plywood over.
Well, I think nailed shut is in what I think it probably was. I mean, it's it could have meant that he took a hammer and nails and actually just wanged away until he had nails driven into his windows and they were never open again. Mm-hmm. But more likely, what's really common, it's even in my house, I've got this with my wooden double hung windows, is you drill a hole through the wood and then you put a long nail in there
so they can't open,
so that people can't open it from the outside.
It's a block.
It's just an extra security device.
Similarly with people, with sliding doors where people put the piece of wood.
Yeah, exactly.
So that you can't open. It's like that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's very
That's
common.
what I would also assume, but sometimes, somebody says nailed shut and I think they've totally boarded up their window.
Yeah, and
or they've nailed 600 nails in and bent them all over sideways because they're nut jobs.
And so I think in this case he probably just drilled holes, but he might have driven a nail or two in there too. I mean, that's one way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it settles the issue permanently. So
it kind of does.
Well, except for if you only have single pane windows, it's pretty easy to break in. But whatever.
It's a good point. But then people got to they got to break through the window, and then because they can't reach in and unlatch it and slide the window open, they have to crawl through an open, broken glass window.
And if it's a panel window situation, that's even because here's the thing: is that having a single pane of glass, a big pane of glass, if you can pop a hole in it, you can kind of quietly break bits of that glass away once you've got a hole in it. But if it's got the wooden lattice in it, where a sheet becomes 6 panels, now you've got to break the wood away, and that's a lot more effort, a lot more obvious, and a lot louder. So that's why windows were divided.
I just always assumed that their windows, these guys that we're sitting next to, just single pane.
Yeah.
Huge sheet.
Big sheets, probably. Probably that'd be the cheapest way. Probably this was cheap housing. Probably. Yeah. As far as stealth goes, I don't know. I don't think burglars these days, at least, they don't really bother to try to be stealthy. They just kick your door down. But
they just assume that. Usually they case a place, right? They just decide if you're not home, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're
going to break in and they're going to take what they want.
And if you're not by a vizier,
Yeah. So anyway, but
okay. So he's nailed shut.
He's got the extra bolts in his door. There's no information really about what kind of bolts he had in his door. Were they key-operated deadbolts, or were they just
sliders?
Sliders. I mean, I don't know. I think they might have been sliders. Although we'll get more into that in a second here. But so he's home for the night, locked in and everything. And about 10:30 p.m., his neighbor, a woman named Mrs. Lachlan Smith, heard sounds of a scuffle, as in fighting, and a kind of a thud, but no gunshots. She ran out to find a policeman and brings a patrolman back. His name was apparently Albert Cattenbane, or Cattenborn, depending on the version you read. He comes back to the building and he bangs on the door, gets no answer from Mr. Fink, and then started trying the doors. There were at least 2 doors to the apartment. I think there was one in the hall, maybe one in the laundry, or I'm not sure.
That was the impression I had as well, yeah.
Or maybe, yeah, and so he tried.
So how he got into the laundry, I'm not
sure about that either, yeah, but apparently there was at least, well, obviously there's at least one door, but most of the versions say there were 2 doors into the apartment, but the doors were locked from the inside. The windows, as I said, nailed shut. And the windows reportedly were not broken also. But the only thing that was open was a transom window above the front door. You know what a transom window is, right?
I was going to say, you need to explain that for folks. Yeah. Not everybody gets that.
Yeah. In older buildings, in some houses and stuff, there's like a doorway and then a whole separate frame window above the door that's the same width as the door typically.
9 feet up.
Yeah,
10 feet usually.
Yeah, it's just right over the door.
Depending on the height of the door, yeah.
Well, doors are usually
6 to 7 feet high, so...
Yeah, they're usually like, 7...
8?
Yeah, I think about 7 feet, yeah.
7 to 8 feet, yeah, so it'd be...
Yeah, 72 inches is typically what a door is, or ballpark is 72 to 84, but anyway...
Yeah, 84, I think.
It doesn't matter.
And so they're the same width typically as the door, but they're not very high. They're kind of like, not terribly high, and they're usually are hinged like in the middle. So it's a frame, it's a wood frame with glass in it, and hinged in the middle so it can be rotated. And the whole idea is just to provide ventilation while your door is shut.
Have undoubted, you know what this is.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think you know what this is, you know what this window is. You've seen it.
Yeah.
Mostly like older hotels and things like that. They don't think
older,
they have them.
It's a window that is hinged along its horizontal center line, and it typically pivots in towards the room that it is opening up into, and out towards the space where if you're outside of the space looking at, so that the hot air on the inside of the room can flow out along the roof or the ceiling, and cooler air can then, because it's for ventilation.
Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, and so he had one of those, and it was, if not open, at least unlatched apparently. Kind of a lapse on Isidore's part, but maybe
he couldn't climb up there.
It's high. Yeah, it's really
kind of high,
high.
and besides which, he probably didn't think burglars were likely to come through it because, frankly, an adult couldn't fit through this window. Speaking of adults, as I said, the windows were nailed shut, doors were locked, but the transom window was open. So Officer Cattenbane, apparently, some people, this is like back in the day, 1929. People didn't have internet or TV, and so when anything looked like it was happening, people would immediately turn out and start rubbernecking. So he finds in the crowd, he finds a small boy and boosts him up and through the transom opening so the kid can drop down the other side and unbolt the door and let him in.
But it had to be a kid, right?
It had to be a kid.
That's important.
Yeah, the kid was...
Because it's a very small opening.
Yeah, no adult could fit through the opening.
I couldn't,
no.
even.
You
I'm little.
Maybe could if you really tried.
I'd have to lose some weight.
Not quickly.
Yeah.
There'd be some contortion.
Yeah, it would be hard.
Realistically, it couldn't be a normal-sized human. And I'm a small, normal-sized
You're a small human.
Yeah. You are small. But, definitely, it's a kid thing. Or an extremely emaciated adult thing,
which,
I suppose.
In the 20s, existed.
Yeah. So the kid goes in, unlocks the door. The police come in, and they find Isidore Fink laying on the floor, dead, 3 gunshot wounds, one of which was in his left wrist or hand, depending on the version you read. But this one had powder burns on it. So a close range shot, like maybe even a contact shot.
So
And we've talked about this before, but to get that kind of powder burn, the gun has to be ballpark about half a foot away.
I would
probably.
say less than,
It's got to be super duper close for the powder to actually be hot enough to burn the skin as well.
Yeah, and at a little bit more distance, even a couple of feet, you'll get particles of gunpowder.
But no burning.
But it won't be a burn. Yeah. But if you want, so this was might possibly even a contact
Yeah, made like right, like a point blank sort of situation.
Which can almost suggest maybe a struggle.
Yes. Yeah, it totally does.
Yeah, it does.
Hand wounds generally do, right? They usually are defensive in nature. So
it's like, oh, please don't shoot me, boom.
Yeah.
And so, but and I guess, depending on the gun, maybe that'll stop it.
It won't.
No.
It's a Martha Wayne scenario.
Yeah, Martha Wayne
from Batman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
No, I'm there.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. Joe's like, who?
Martha Wayne?
Batman? I've never heard of such a thing.
I remember
a man that is a bat?
Yeah.
Flies around at night with echolocation?
I saw the best comic today, which was young Bruce Wayne falls down the well hole that he falls down, but instead of a horde of bats, it's a horde of rats. And
Ratman.
So then 20 years later, it's Ratman sitting on a precipice in a building, just looking miserable in a rat suit.
You've seen the Batman one, right?
Yeah.
Where it's actually a bat who's choosing to be a man.
Yes.
Who's actually
I
a
like
bat.
that. Man bat. I like it. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sorry, but Martha Wayne aside.
To back enough of
So he's got a bullet hole in his hand
and then
with burn marks.
Yeah, with burn marks, and then 2 in his chest.
Okay.
Which apparently, according to the medical examiner, should have killed him instantly, and probably did kill him instantly.
So likely the hand was first.
Yeah, most
and
likely.
then the chest was second.
Yeah, there's not much point in shooting somebody dead and then shooting him in the hand too, right?
Unless you're a sicko.
Yeah.
Or you want it to appear as though there was a struggle or something. But...
Or it's also conceivable, depending on the kind of gun that was used. It could maybe he only fired 2 shots, and one was
the hand was over the chest when the shot was fired.
The hand and into the chest.
But so do we know which side of the hand the burns were on?
No, we do not.
Yeah, see, that's frustrating too.
Like freaking details in the story that kill me.
Because that's an important one, right? If the hand was over the chest, it'd be on the outside, just for people who are having a hard time visualizing things. But if it was a defensive, it'd be on the palm, probably, right?
Yeah. And
it'd be good to know.
I know, it would be good to know, and maybe someday, next time I'm back in New York, I'm going to go to the NYPD and demand the records.
Listen, I spent a lot of time in the New York Times archives, very upset because there were so many articles that looked like they might be related.
It's not right. Not quite.
Well, no, the problem is I couldn't read the articles because it turns out from the late 1890s to 1921 are free to read. Anything after that requires a membership, which is paid and is at an exorbitant amount of money. And I was very mad because I kept having these threads and then I couldn't ever get in there to find out the real thing.
I'm confident that somebody we know has a membership, so we should.
I hope so. And if they do, they need to find it and send it to us.
The windows were closed and locked, and the door was locked, and the only thing that was open was that one tiny transom, little window.
Yeah, the transom window.
So
that the initial conclusion, obviously, that you would draw is he killed himself.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody who shoots themselves in the hand
it's
first.
Always an obvious conclusion.
But I mean, if there's no egress.
I know.
Yeah, it could have been that he.
But there's no gun.
Yeah, actually,
that screws the whole thing up. Is there's no gun.
And by the way, speaking of shooting yourself in the hand, I met a guy once who had shot himself accidentally through the hand.
And then shot himself twice in the chest?
No, he didn't do that.
Right.
It was an accident. Just saying, Isidore could have screwed up and shot himself in the hand, and then, it doesn't matter. I'm going to kill myself anyway. Bang.
But also, maybe this is off topic. Maybe this is going too fast. But I don't know the statistics behind this, but I feel like most people who try to kill themselves with a gun don't shoot themselves in the chest.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's an awkward...
we've actually had this conversation before.
Yeah.
It is a very difficult and awkward angle.
But more than that...
You would people who do it don't usually use their trigger finger. They use their thumb.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they have to backwards face the gun.
But even more than that, the gun would be right there. So.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Yeah, it's a gun should have been there. But it's looking like murder. But then that opens up another can of worms. Looking around the apartment, there was nothing missing except for his Maltese Falcon sculpture.
Is that real?
Yeah. What's that?
No, is that real?
What, the Maltese Falcon?
Yeah.
Of course it's real. They made a movie about it.
No. But not
what, did he really have a Maltese Falcon?
No, he didn't.
He did not.
I'm sorry. I just want to be very clear about that.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, okay.
I know. It would be great, though.
It would be amazing.
I know, but no. Although you never know. Maybe there was something like that in there that got taken. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't seem like he had a lot of close personal friends or connections that would be able to really vouch for. I mean, the police said it didn't seem like anything was missing, but like,
how do they know? I mean,
dust marks usually, right?
If you don't know what is in the house originally, you don't know what is missing from
It'd be hard.
It's hard to say, because
unless he'd had a painting on the wall for 10 years and there's that telltale ring around it.
Yeah, in this case, they concluded robbery wasn't the motive because he had money in his pockets, and also he had a cash drawer for the laundry that had cash in it. So they concluded that robbery was not the motive. Although, on the other hand, who knows? But so they ruled out robbery, and they found no fingerprints on the crime scene except for Isidore Fink's. He typically didn't let people in that he didn't know because he was security conscious.
Right.
The room was not all torn up.
That's a political term. That's a politically correct term for what he was.
Yeah, a little paranoid, but well, the room was not all torn up from a struggle or anything like that, so there wasn't a huge thing. But his iron had been left on. He was apparently doing some late night ironing and for his business. Hardworking guy.
Yeah.
And so his iron was turned on, sitting on the ironing board.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Was it an electric iron?
I heard it was a gas iron, and I don't know how that works. So that's what in one place I read it was a gas
So it
iron.
wasn't like one of the old-time ones that you would heat over a flame?
I presumed that's what they meant by a gas iron, is he had a gas stove that was an open flame that he set the steel iron on.
And then heated it up, and then that's probably it.
That's what I
don't know when
too.
they came out with electric iron.
I do not believe that there was ever such a thing as a gas iron.
Yeah.
I believe that it is what Devin is saying.
That's what I would think as well.
I was thinking it was sort of a gasoline power thing.
I don't think so.
I
don't think so.
But that also takes credit away from the statements about how long that gas iron was out, because we don't know how hot that device was when he used it.
Well, a gas iron won't scorch fabric. It'll scorch the time that it is the hottest. Sorry, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit because the next thing you're going to say is... Well, the next thing you were going to say, I know because of your script, was that the iron had not had time to scorch the fabric, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that was supposed to set a timeline. And I'm about to do some Googling. But if it is the kind of old-timey iron that we're talking about where you set it on a heat source and then you put it... The time that it is most likely to scorch the fabric is when you first, because that follows,
that's
right?
when it's hottest.
Yeah, that's when it's hottest.
And then it begins to cool.
Yeah, and so even if it's sat on there for a long period of time without moving, it's going to continue to cool. It's not going to eventually scorch. It will scorch immediately or not at all.
That's why electric irons burn things, because they are continually at a consistent temperature.
Yeah.
High temperature.
Which in my case is always too hot because it messes up everything I have. But
I don't know why you do that. It's easy
I don't have an iron
stop
anymore,
ironing
actually.
your t-shirts.
Yeah, I know.
And your socks, man.
Yeah.
Socks don't need a crease.
There are people out there that do that.
I know.
I met a guy once who obviously ironed his blue jeans because he had a nice sharp crease down the front of his blue jeans.
Have I not ever talked about the cowboys that I used to hang out with that had that? That was a thing in the 90s.
They had creases.
Was your Wranglers had to have a seam in the front.
All right.
And there were guys that you could tell those pants had been ironed 100 times and could never ever be ironed again, and they would still have a hard ridge down the front. Yeah, no, it's a thing.
Okay, I guess it was a thing. Okay.
It's a fashion thing.
Right.
I don't get that. Devin might, but I don't.
That shows you how ignorant I am. Okay. All right. So anyway, but enough about the iron. But it looks like though he was still doing some work. He's doing some work. He's interrupted. He's killed. But robbery or burglary was not the motive. And so police were puzzled about this. They talked to everybody he knew, which is customers and neighbors and stuff like that. And he had no known enemies as far as anybody knew. And of course, as I already said, we really don't know that nothing was taken. I mean, there might have been something really valuable in there. And so maybe it's something so valuable the killer grabbed it and didn't bother looking for anything else to take. Didn't go through the cash drawer.
There's another story that we're going to be covering soon that I have the same question, which is the perpetrator may have found the initial stash or a stash of many and thinking, I found the treasure trove, booked it.
Yeah.
But didn't get all of the treasure because they left too soon.
That's why when you're hiding your treasure, your cash, whatever, you don't put it all in one place.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. Yeah.
Too many eggs in one basket.
No, exactly. But of course, the one thing they found out from talking to everybody is that they said, especially his customers, they said he'd been a little paranoid for about the past year. He said he kept his door locked even during business hours. And he would only let people in that he recognized. And he told them
that can't be conducive to a profitable business.
Well, it's kind of annoying for your customers to have to stand out there knocking on the door, especially if it's raining.
Well, even if they're in the apartment hallway, but if it's somebody he doesn't know, and he's like, I'm not taking your clothes. Dude, I've been living down the street for a month, and I've never come here. I'm trying to give you business. He's like, I don't know, you go away.
Well, yeah, I know. On the other hand, like, there are plenty of businesses, especially one like this, that he could have been at his capacity. He could have been literally